Hello and welcome to a small chat from SpyCod Labs about some of our research that we have found recently. Today I'm joined by James, security staff researcher at SpyCloud Labs, and today the topic of the discussion is pay-per-install network entities. First off, James, can you tell us a little bit more about what a PPI network is and how they function?
Yeah. Okay. So a PPI network or a pay per install network. So they're a type of affiliate marketing model where advertisers will pay affiliates based on the number of installations generated for software applications. So in the context of a legitimate business practice, PPI is often used to promote legal software apps, and affiliates are compensated for each successful installation. But this is definitely not a legitimate business practice that we're looking at today. In the context of what we're talking about today, and within the cybercriminal landscape, PPI networks are used to promote malware, and actors are compensated for successful malware installs.
Oh, wow. So this particular PPI network you researched is called SpaxMedia, and they only install malware?
Yep. Yeah, they at least for the Windows and Mac installations, they're only installing malware for Android. They're leading to like gambling websites and like adult websites and like fishy looking apps that we haven't been able to confirm as malware, but they're definitely not something that you want to install. But yeah, for the Windows and Mac, it's exclusively malware.
Wow, that's very interesting. What did you learn about this particular PPI network and how is it structured and set up?
Okay, there's two sides to this operation. So there's the more public side, which is their publisher side. So the publishers are as they're the more public side of this operation. Publishers own websites and they link up their websites to SpaxMedia, and then SpaxMedia gives them HTML and JavaScript to insert into their websites with SpaxMedia download buttons. These are known as ad codes on SpaxMedia's backend. When a victim clicks this button, publishers are paid out based on where the victim originated in the world. So they have like geofiltering. If you come from like Russia, for example, you're going to receive a lot less money than if you come from if the victim comes from the United States, for example. The more and so that's how the publishers work. And so they advertise on their website that if you are a publisher, you can sign up here, and it's very public because they want to attract more publishers to keep SpaxMedia alive. But so then the more private and nefarious side of SpaxMedia involves their direct advertisers, which they kind of keep close to their chest, but you can see them talk about direct advertisers in a few different places. But so direct advertisers are who SpaxMedia is actually advertising for. And in our observations for Windows and Mac victims, exclusively consisted of malware. Direct advertisers give SpaxMedia the malware samples or malware distribution sites that need linked up to the ad codes, and also then pay SpaxMedia for each victim install. So each time that somebody clicks on a button, direct advertisers are who are giving SpaxMedia money, and then SpaxMedia are giving parts of that money to the publishers. And so for the actual actors that are involved, they've since deleted their LinkedIn profiles. But SpaxMedia's CEO was listed as a person named Sarish Hashmi from Pakistan. Sarish used their LinkedIn to not only publish articles that linked back to SpaxMedia connected websites, but then also used their LinkedIn to ask for direct advertisers to contact them on Skype to communicate. Additionally, there was somebody who was listed as SpaxMedia's chief financial officer, who was named Ali Khan. He also worked as a publisher for SpaxMedia from his LinkedIn. So he would have links and articles that would lead to SpaxMedia linked up websites.
Wow, that's really interesting. So you mentioned that there's some of the factors that they use or the vectors are LinkedIn, and is there any other types of vectors that they use to distribute malware?
Yeah, so first, just for LinkedIn, because I figured it's important to cover like how they're spreading on LinkedIn. When they're so for LinkedIn, they when I talk about like them spreading on LinkedIn, some of them will just have links, like they'll just share a link to LinkedIn, and it'll just be a post on LinkedIn sharing a link to LinkedIn. And that'll be a very basic post, but then others will actually have very thorough articles that eventually lead to the SpaxMedia linked up site. And so they'll have like very complex and very complete articles that people can read through and then click on the link to lead to the LinkedIn site. And then in addition to that, they also use basic SEO poisoning to get their publishers will to get their crack sites to the top of Google results. Because the sites that are mainly linked up to SpaxMedia are software like pirated software install sites or pirated games install sites. And so they're very hard. The publishers are very hard at work trying to get those sites to the top of Google results, so that when you search for like GTA 5 crack, what comes up is a SpaxMedia linked site.
Oh, wow.
Um, Additionally, they have these things called search aggregators, where you'll go to a website and it'll say nothing here is found, but please search here for more info. And in the search bar will be like a very formatted, very specific SEO search, that has like very specific terms to search off of. And when you hit enter, it'll have you search on Google for that very specific search term. And in the results that come up are normally a large amount of not just SpaxMedia, but also other PPI networks that are distributing malware as well.
Wow, that reminds me of the old days of the search bars and the search hijacking. That's very interesting. So it sounds like you were also able to find some of the details about the malware families that they're distributing. So what are you seeing them favor?
Yeah, so it's of the families that I saw them distribute, they were primarily distributing a malware family called LummaC2, which is an information stealer. It steals a lot of credentials for browsers. It steals files on the computer system. It steals credentials stored on the computer system. It can even steal emails. But then they were also distributing a family called Vidar, which is also an info stealer. A family called StealC, which is another info stealer, and some Mac malware, which is called Atomic Stealer. All of these are info stealers. I primarily only exclusively see them distribute info stealers, with LummaC2 being the one that they favor the most.
And these don't really have persistence. These info stealers are pretty much a run one and done, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Nice. That's really, really interesting, especially the Mac side of it. So good work on that. So in your mind, what are the implications of a PPI network like Spax Media? What do you take away from this?
So when I was looking at this network, I noticed that it had a lot of correlation to another network that was analyzed by Sophos in 2021, Install USD, which this network behaved very similarly to Install USD, so it might be related to Install USD. And so it kind of demonstrates a potential web of criminal activity that compounds on itself, because in addition to Install USD, we uncovered a lot of different unnamed PPI networks that all kind of had had very unique ways of behaving, that made them like that I was able to group them, but they weren't SpaxMedia. So
Hmm.
there is a potential web of criminal activity that compounds on itself here. Um, as we're not really sure how many of these are actually linked together. And I think
Wow.
it's very worth digging into of this PPI network web. And then the other thing that the implications of a PPI network like SpaxMedia is that PPI networks themselves are nothing new, but unless we pay attention, they'll continue to fly under the radar. They are responsible for astronomical amounts of malware infections daily, as lots of people, from children to the elderly, will probably download cracked software at least one point in their life.
Absolutely.
And so which of course matters to us, to all of us in the security community who are focused on mitigating follow-on attacks from malware exposures. Because like, while I do not recommend downloading cracked software ever, it's just pay for the software. It if somebody is getting infected, I think that we should be paying attention.
Definitely.
SpyCloud Labs is actively researching this and other topics. So make sure to follow along on our SpyCloud Labs blog, where you can read about this topic as well as the many other topics that we are currently researching.